The weekend cyber attack crippled many activities and businesses globally, spurring emergency meetings on how to address the trend. How much of financial losses has this brought? A focus on Business Nigeria today. Welcome, I am Yemisi Lanredo. In the news, the International Chamber of Commerce is the largest, most representative business organization in the world. It has membership in over 130 countries with interest across sectors. As a business dispute resolution and policy advocacy, the agency has introduced a new set of rules and regulations to ease conflict resolutions among companies. Speaking at the second ICC Africa Regional Arbitration Conference in Lagos, key industry players say the organization has succeeded in mediating business crises.
Africa are becoming a destination for investment. And as long as we continue to have a lot of international investment in Africa, particularly in Nigeria, there's bound to be some disputes to be resolved. Anytime that anything that involves cross-border relationship requires that you have a very sound and robust arbitration that will be able to take care of this so that there will be smooth flow of investment and trade into Africa and into Nigeria in this instance.
Arbitration has played an important role in Europe and in the United States, allowing businesses to resolve their disputes outside of courts, and therefore reducing time, reducing bureaucracy, and allowing parties to resolve their disputes in a more private fashion. And that is usually very advantageous to companies around the world. So I think that Africa can learn from the United States, from Europe, by introducing legislation that favors international arbitration.
The Nigerian economy has attracted investments worth $1 billion in the first 2 months of this year. Statistician General of the Federation and Chief Executive National Bureau of Statistics, Yemi Kale, confirmed the development. Kale said the investment inflows into the country in the first 2 months of this year exceeded what Nigeria attracted during the same period in 2016. He noted that the economy showed signs of recovery in the first quarter of 2017, believing that gradual reduction in inflation rate could cause more companies to perform better. Capacities by private companies to create jobs for youth have become an underlying factor in winning government contracts. Nigeria's Minister of Budget and Planning, Senator Udo Udoma, disclosed this in Abuja. He said government assistance to businesses would be assessed on abilities to generate employment for young graduates. Udoma revealed that the government was worried about the high level of unemployment in the country. Well, Nigerian authorities are studying the ransomware cyber infection. Ransomware is a computer virus that installs discreetly on victims' device, holding his data hostage until ransom, which is usually in cryptocurrency, is paid. It is cyber kidnapping. On Saturday, a source in the government told the Cable that the situation was being studied and Nigeria is vulnerable to cyber attacks. Well, the Minister of Communication, Adebayo Shitu, disclosed that the country lost over $450 million to cyber attacks in 2015. He said Nigeria witnessed 3,500 of such attacks in that year alone. And according to Kaspersky Labs, a Russian cybersecurity firm, the great cyber attack on May the 12th seemed like the world was facing digital apocalypse. In Britain, doctors could neither access their patients' files nor make appointments to see their patients. In Russia, hundreds of Interior Ministry's workers site idle. In China, students were locked out of their theses as the latest cyber attack rippled around the globe, infecting at least 45,000 computers in over 90 countries. In the event, catastrophe was averted when somebody found a kill switch which stopped the malicious software involved spreading further. Now, the attacks will still make a pretty penny. The attackers, rather, will still make a pretty penny, but untold hours will have to be spent cleaning up the messes. How much has been lost to this weekend of scandal? Well, for companies and organizations An attack by hackers can inflict financial losses, corporate embarrassment, and legal action. For insurers jumping into the brave new world of cybercrime insurance, it's free marketing for what could be a $10 billion opportunity. Insurance see coverage against hackers as one of their most promising markets, estimating that premiums will triple over the next 4 years. Well, it's a disturbing trending issue, and joining me to analyze the situation is ICT expert joining me from Houston, Texas, Modupe Ajibola. Many thanks for your time, Modupe. Modupe is joining me via Skype. Yes, cyber risk has become a boardroom issue over the past years following some high-profile hacker attacks. What was your initial reaction as an ICT expert when you saw this weekend of great cyber attacks?
Well, it's interesting because, you know, there's a company that I'd been doing some projects with called NSS Labs, and their goal was to actually analyze the vulnerability of applications to cyber attack. They've known this has been coming for a while, and companies have been gearing up and preventing, protecting themselves from this types of attack. But this scale has never been thought of, where folks are literally globally affected simultaneously. And so there's a big concern in the community now that how do you take the preemptive step to protect your systems from this afflictions. Essentially, what happens is that this malware just pretty much encrypts your files, right? And the kill switch, as you've mentioned, is not a cure to that problem because it can still affect your system via other mechanisms, right? So it just stalls it, but it doesn't stop the ways it can affect your system. So you could open a Microsoft reward system, and that could be the way through the system this attack attacks your system. So there's so many other ways it can. I think the most important thing for folks to know now is that if your system is not updated, your Microsoft systems are not updated, especially if you're using XP, you need to update those systems. If you have a system, go on,
Modupe.
If you have a system that is on a network that is actually not updated, which means you have a computer that you don't know about is on the same local area network and it doesn't have the updated software, you need to disconnect them from the LAN network until they update their software. Otherwise, you are vulnerable. The whole system is vulnerable to this. All it needs is one computer to be vulnerable for it to attack the whole network.
Yes, Modupe. Microsoft Windows operating system are particularly vulnerable, and we know how common Microsoft Windows is amongst, we see people using it a lot. What do you say in this case of Microsoft?
It's not an issue of Microsoft. Like I said, there's so many other channels through which this malware can affect your system. It can affect you through other software applications that you use on your computer. So again, updating the actual operating system is actually the fastest and best way to prevent this issue. And they've issued out a patch. Immediately when they see these viruses, they issue out a patch to fix it. Software companies cannot be in front of this thing because the guys that are creating these malwares are not sleeping. They are very proactive and they're coming up with solutions. Unfortunately for them, though, they were looking to make money off of this thing. And if you look at the Bitcoin account they've been using, it's actually just about, what, $34,000 they've raised so far. So they're not really, the money is not turning around like they thought it would for them to monetize this disruption. Folks are not really paying this $300. Now, it may change. Folks may realize that their files need to be released, so they need to pay up the money. But right now, it's not becoming a money-making venture for these folks. And I would also encourage folks to back up their systems. All your files that you find necessary, back it up into some kind of external hard drive. Make sure you're not just leaving yourself vulnerable to losing all your files.
Yes, it's become a major money spinner. And of course, looking at Bitcoin itself is one way of making money already in circulation. But we'll take a break after this. And we know that cyber insurance seems to be a key growth area at this moment when it comes to this this attack by cyber criminals. But we'll look at that after the break, Modupe. Do hang in there. Thank you. It's Business Nigeria. We're talking the great cyber attacks of May the 12th, which seemed more like a digital apocalypse, a global one at that. We saw it happening in Britain, Russia, China, and of course the Nigerian government is already studying the ransomware cyber infection. I've been speaking with Modukpe Ajibola, ICT expert, who is joining me from Houston, Texas. All right, Modukpe, yes, criminals increasingly shifted from going after individual consumers to attacking vulnerable organizations and businesses. And of course, a ransom of $300, or rather the equivalent in Bitcoin, has been asked. Now, let's look at Bitcoin itself. Of course, we know they couldn't have asked that they pay in cash. Can't the government do something about that mode of payment?
Well, you know, this has been something that has been an affliction for government across the world, how to deal with the Bitcoin concept in and of itself. It's a very useful tool if you think about how the banks themselves are becoming legacy in the way of dealing with transactions. So Bitcoin is actually a very quick, rapid way of selling digital products. So Bitcoin in and of itself is not the demon here. It's not the bad news here. It's just how to track where the money is going. And government is getting better, but they're not quite there in how to make that happen. Normally you could track it based on the withdrawal, who is withdrawing money. But folks leave their currency in this Bitcoin market for so many years. So by the time they withdraw it, you may not be able to associate the crime to the withdrawal. So it's above my pay grade how that problem will be solved. But I do know that it's something in the forefront of everybody's mind on how to deal with it. And this type of crisis even makes it more urgent to address.
All right, another ICT expert, Ido Wakinde, joins me now in the studio. And before you came on board, Ido, I was asking how Modukpe actually felt with this great weekend cyber attack almost all over the world. About over 90 countries have affected. First, let me get your initial reaction. And of course, we'll bring it back home, talking about the Nigerian government still studying. We know Nigeria is also vulnerable to this attack. So let's get your reaction.
Okay, thank you very much, MC. First of all, there was an update late yesterday night, so it's now affecting about 200 countries and about 200,000 cases. Well, the first thing that goes to anyone's mind is business loss of data and loss of business. So businesses that are running on the affected OS and who are serving customers, and this therefore means that they will lose part of the promise that they've made to those customers. Therefore, those customers can sue them for money and so on and so forth. Essentially, I would like to echo Microsoft's statements in the sense that it's a wake-up call for everyone. Even the most proficient cybersecurity and computer security experts will tell you that there is no measure too much to take to protect your digital assets. But in summary, my first reaction is to tell people that this is a wake-up call. Everybody needs to tighten their belts, from hospitals that have online customer management systems to defense systems, to national defense systems, to television networks, to any other type of critical system that people depend on for everyday life. Maybe because we're in Nigeria, our everyday infrastructure, our urban infrastructure is not yet 100% digital. So our traffic lights, are not yet susceptible. Airplanes are not yet susceptible to that point. But this is a good wake up. Well, it's a bit of a tragedy, but it's a good wake up call for everyone.
It's a wake up call, really, right. Because if countries like Britain and China could be facing that, and they could actually do nothing over the weekend. So what would Nigeria be saying in this case?
Well, with this kind of attack and this kind of incidents, there's no one is safe, to be fair. Okay, so I don't mean to spread panic, but
what would you have thought? Okay, if this happens in Nigeria, what's the first point of call?
Well, the first thing to do is to first of all do an audit of what has been affected. Okay, and secondly, stop the spread. Okay, contain the spread. Okay, and then try to disinfect those ones that have been disinfected. I do not, personal opinion, I do not propose that people pay the ransom. Because by paying the ransom, you are encouraging this person on this initiative and, you know, emboldening them to do more in the future. You know, so I would rather, you know, for those who are affected, I would rather ask them to quickly seek expert help to try and disinfect what they have.
All right, let me get back to you, Modupe. Now, I know that cyber insurance is not fully embraced in this part of the climb, but I know that it seems to be a key growth area at the moment. A new breed of coverage couldn't come at a better time for insurers at this time. Now, let's play the devil's advocate in this area. Do you think that cyber insurance could be the ones actually, let me use the word, pouring this into the system?
I guess the point you're making is that is the
infecting the system.
Yeah, is the guy fixing the tire the one putting the nail in the road, right? So,
yep.
So I understand. I understand what you're going after, and it could be nobody can tell. But I will tell you though, I appreciate the opinion of the previous gentleman, and I think it's dead on. However, I think there's no way to release your files from these folks unless you pay the ransom. I can tell you that much. So if you don't have files that you need, yeah, we don't pay them because government doesn't know how to decrypt their algorithm. So once you're infected, there's no way to fix the infection other than to decrypt it. And these folks will release your file once you pay the ransom. So some people can afford to lose those files, some people may not. That's that. The other issue is this. Like I said, there's these companies that you can look at. Example, NSS Labs. I've done work with them. I actually was a development manager for this company years back. And what they do is they actually run algorithm through all your systems to determine which one is vulnerable to these types of attack. They find out what malwares are out there and they run, and based on that, they recommend to you what kind of malware defense mechanism you need on your systems. I think our government in Nigeria and other parts of the world, rather, need to subscribe to this. Big companies are subscribing to these types of preventive measures. It's the only way around it. You cannot go into audit mode you know, when you have means to prevent something. If you wait till then, it's too late. You already have your system compromised.
All right, you might want to add something to that.
Okay.
I know governments have summoned emergency meetings on how to address this trending issue. Okay. So what would you want to say? Okay, or what would you want to advise the government to be looking at in this case? Okay,
that's a very good point by the gentleman. And to further push that line of thought forward, I would propose that the government, at least for the establishments, for the organizations that are under their jurisdiction, aka government agencies that have digital assets, okay, online assets that are exposed, to implement, like you said, preventive measures. I understand that there is a suite of security products, you know, from endpoint protection to data in motion protection, but I especially want to talk about those that are relevant to this case. They are called vulnerability assessment tools. So the mindset behind these tools is that as a company, whether you're a private company now or you're a government agency, you want to internally take the role of an external malicious person, of an external hacker. So you want to simulate threats that someone else might launch, you know, or attacks that someone else might launch on your systems. And you want to be the first person to discover that, oh, I have the following holes in the following areas of my network. You know, so that's what vulnerability assessment tools do for you. Of course, that then, the output of any vulnerability assessment exercise is to give you a vulnerability report. And then you can take action based on that. There are also a wide number of tools that can help you patch the lapses that are discovered. You know, so if there's anything to tell the federal government of Nigeria right now, it is to do a comprehensive vulnerability assessment for all the agencies that have digital assets that are exposed.
All right, Modupe, final word, both of you now, but I'll start with you, Modupe. I know that hackers, you have said we should try and update our software or our systems, but I know that one thing we should be, or ICT experts should be looking at, is going a step ahead of these hackers. Because what we see most of the time is that they are one step ahead of you experts. So in your case, as experts, what should we be doing aside updating?
The vulnerability protection. You have to look at what applications you're running. Like I said, it's not just a Microsoft issue. If you use Microsoft Word, if you use some software, a lot of different softwares you use on your computer could be vulnerable to introducing these malwares into your system. So all you need is to use the softwares to detect what you're vulnerable towards and then protect yourself. But I think other than that, there's really nothing you can do to protect yourself. And government can actually protect systems, right? Government can actually have a gateway of a protection gateway between users and these malwares. But this requires investment that folks would not take seriously until these kinds of things happen to them, unfortunately. And I hope we don't have it happen before we take this precaution.
Yeah, let me get your view, your final word.
Okay. Well, going forward, it would be it would be advisable for people, the general mass of users, computer users, everyday computer users, to bear in mind certain tips, to avoid falling into these kinds of traps. Namely, the most common, the most obvious ones are to avoid opening emails that come from unknown senders, or emails that come from known senders but with funny titles, funny messages, and funny attachments. In the first place, these are the most popular entry points for these malware. So if people keep in mind to be alert while being online, while browsing, while using the internet, while downloading and installing applications, perhaps these things might be minimized.
Yes, it's been a field day for the hackers. Also, cyber insurance experts will also be sprawling for money at the moment. And of course, it's a wake-up call for the governments and individuals. I must thank you so much for your time, Modupe Ajibola, ICT expert, who joined me from Houston, Texas, and Idowu Akinde here in Lagos. Thank you both. Well, crude oil prices are still not stable at the international market. At the London market, the Brent crude trades at $52 a barrel after a little push by nearly 3 cents. The commodity price rises significantly by 2.85%, and for the OPEC basket brand, price drops to $48 a barrel. Well, that's Business Nigeria. I'm Yemisi Lanre. Bye for now, and I'll leave you with the figures of the exchange rate as it stands at the moment.